It's now my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Paula Kranz. Paula is CEO of MediXR, a digital health consulting firm that's focused on immersive technologies, AR and VR, XR. She also has a focus on remote patient management and AI and virtual care expansion. Paula is helping lead an effort promoted by the FDA for our community, the XR community ecosystem, to form a collaborative community so that there's a dialogue between the research groups, the academic groups, and the early stage product development companies and the FDA. So important as we understand what barriers do we have to go through as we approach validated clinical products. Paula, it's so good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Walter, and good to see you again. Thanks to Rob Lewis and the Hoag Hospital and everybody on this conference call today. I think it's so wonderful and so inspiring to see our community coming together. I thought it would be interesting to start with a little story about how I got into this community, because it's not a typical path. And then I'll get into the XR healthcare collaborative community. But I had the experience 20 years ago of being exposed to virtual reality. I know that's not as long ago as Dr. Greenleaf, but the military started using VR to train military cadets in what it would be like to be in combat. They needed to do screening and expose future soldiers to the environment they would be exposed to. And that has continued to evolve over time with the military. Now the military uses it prolifically, from everything from training and exposure to foreign countries and learning to be in a different culture to treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder. I also had the opportunity to use virtual reality for sports enhancement training. The USA swimming team uses it to expose athletes to issues in the water they may be facing with using the wrong form, and it changes their behavior in the water, and they become better Olympians because of it. I also had the experience to work with the Smithsonian on creating immersive VR experiences to address unconscious bias. So I've had myriad experiences before I came into the healthcare community to understand the power of this technology. And so I'm more excited than ever to see this community taking off and making a difference and saving lives. Next slide, please. I think it's interesting to note, I don't know if it was covered earlier in the day, but just the global market for virtual reality in healthcare and projected market is growing exponentially. And the US is leading that market with a 30% share. China, Japan, and Canada are following not far behind. What's driving this growth for AR and VR in the healthcare industry? So one thing is the adaptation of the hardware. It's just becoming easier to afford. They're higher quality and lower cost headsets. In the augmented reality space, the growth is being fueled by software development and the creation of standardized platforms on which to create new applications. There is also an interest in the introduction of 5G cellular connectivity. So if you have easier connectivity and don't have to worry about the low quality content, I think the user is going to have a better experience. Next slide, please. So with this growth and across various industries, what's happening in the healthcare industry is really exciting. These are some of the early applications of AR and VR. And Hoag Hospital, our host today, has really done an incredible job. I'm over on the right coast, the East Coast, working in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work at Novant Hospital. We're in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia. And we're looking to Hoag and the West Coast for this adoption of the technologies, and it's very exciting to see. So I just want to commend again our team here tonight for organizing this conference. But because of this effort across the country and the growing interest in this community and the adoption of these use cases, the FDA has decided that there's a big enough ecosystem here that they want to promote something called the collaborative community. So they reached out to a group of us, next slide please, and asked if we would be willing to try to create something called the collaborative community. And their driving question is, how can the ecosystem collaborate to collectively advance our goals and ensure safety, quality, and remarkable care? I think so. A lot of the presenters tonight have addressed many of those issues, but this is a way to bring together everyone from hardware producers, software producers, content producers, the healthcare systems that use it, and so forth, to work together towards these common goals. Next slide, please. So the FDA has supported various collaborative communities across the US. You can see some of them listed here. And if you Google FDA collaborative communities, you can find these same links and learn more about what they're doing. Next slide, please. What we decided to do was look at our ecosystem and the various actors. You can see some of the suggested actors here, but I think you've heard from many of them today. Next slide. And basically group what they want us to do, but put it under the IVRHA, so the International Virtual Reality Healthcare Association. If you were tuned in earlier, you heard from Bob Fine. And Bob has done an amazing job bringing together this collective community and working on key issues. In the left column, I listed some of the issues they've tried to address. Basic things like a terminology dictionary or glossary, safety and quality standards, data collection specifications, the parameters and standards that we need to follow as a community, a code of conduct. Some of these things that we're not thinking about because we're not a collective community and we're unknown quantity for medical device community in many ways. So this effort is kind of at a nascent point, but I would encourage anyone, next slide, to think if you're interested in being part of shaping everything from reimbursement codes to how hardware is evolving to the content that we need to solve solutions in our respective healthcare institutions, consider reaching out to the IVRHA. I have the website listed there, or send a note to me or Rob Lewis or Walter Greenleaf, and we'd be happy to connect you. In my experience in the military, I learned that it takes a collective effort to accomplish anything. No military does it alone. It's about coalitions. And so it's very exciting to be part of this. And I know I'm the only thing that stands between the end of this conference and the weekend. So I'm going to stop there. But thank you, Rob, for inviting me to be part of this. And thanks, everyone, for your participation today.